And now I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for this hour, Dr. Martha Campbell. Martha Campbell serves as the Dean of Communications at St. Petersburg College in Florida. She taught composition and literature classes from 1987 to 2003, entering administration in 2003. She holds a bachelor's degree in English from Furman University, a master's in English education from Duke University, and a Doctor of Education degree from the University of South Florida. She has also taught at Georgia Perimeter College and Mountain View College. She is the author of 2 developmental writing textbooks, Focus, Writing Paragraphs and Essays, and Focus, Writing Sentences and Paragraphs. Please welcome Dr. Campbell.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Sarah, and welcome to Course Redesign, Finding Success in 8-Week Developmental Ed Courses. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. I hope you're having a beautiful day where you are as well. I'm very delighted to have the chance to talk with you today about some of our adventures at St. Petersburg College in Course Redesign. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint presentation with you, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. St. Petersburg College's adventures in course redesign began 2 years ago when we had the opportunity to apply for a grant in FUC. The grant was called the Florida Developmental Initiative Grant and was funded in part by the Lumina Foundation and by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Essentially what happened is probably will someday be a source of laughter and fond reminiscences for the math dean and me, because we decided just to lock ourselves in a room for 2 days and only come out for brief periods while we wrote a grant. We knew there would be a quick turnaround on this grant, as there was. We found out just 3 weeks later that we had the grant, and then had a year to implement it. If you'd like more information on the grant, certainly feel free to contact me at campbell.martha@spcollege.edu. We began the grant in the spring of 2011, again after approximately a year of planning. The reason we wrote the grant is because of a commitment that the college had and that the math dean and I had. We're both college-wide deans. That we could reduce the time, we thought we could reduce the time in developmental education, specifically for students who had come close to testing out of developmental ed. One of the first things we had to do, of course, is figure out what those parameters might be. I'll talk more about that later in the presentation. The key components were based on the National Center for Academic Transformation principles. And I put the address there in case you would like to visit their site. But essentially, the idea, and this is strongly, again, backed by the principles of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is that the use of diagnostic assessments for placement. And the idea, this is in addition to the placement test. And the idea is to use that diagnostic assessment to place students into specific instructional modules, so that what happens is the student only works on remediating the areas that show to be deficient. The other idea, it was to make sure we had some pedagogy. We wanted faculty in the room. We wanted point-in-time pedagogy, and you know when those teaching moments occur and you have a student that you know may be having difficulty with a problem, what better than to have a faculty member there who can say, let's work on this and let's see if we can move you forward. We did look at a number of best practices. Most of the course redesign projects, however, have been in mathematics, with the state of Tennessee and other states leading the way. However, Virginia, and some of you may be from Virginia, you probably know, of course, that in your community colleges there's a concern there's a movement to bring course redesign to all of Virginia's community colleges. So we looked at best practices, and we tried to figure out, quite frankly, how to take some of the best practices that were associated with math course redesign and to see if we could also make those best practices part of developmental reading and writing course redesign. Specifically, we wanted to have students to have the opportunity to exit developmental coursework in the same semester that they entered college-level courses. And what that meant is that we would have to go to 8-week courses. We'll talk about those in just a minute as well. As it turns out, we were the only college in Florida that put in a grant to redesign all three developmental areas. But today, I'm limiting my discussion to reading and writing. We are approximately the 5th largest state college in Florida. We have approximately 35,000 students. Approximately 45% of our students placed into some form of developmental English and or writing. The idea was to roll this program out college-wide on all of our 5 major campuses. We had 200 enrollments a year ago in courses. The numbers are a little odd, 0990, but those numbers were given to us by the state of Florida so we could specifically track our students' success. Proud to say that in the fall, we had increased that enrollment by 33% with 314 enrollments this fall. We had 32 sections of the ENC 0990 and 26 sections of REA 0990 a year ago. Now you can do the math and you can see that those were very small sections. Most of the sections had somewhere between 5 and 10 students in them. We reduced the number of sections in the fall, but increased the enrollments because we felt that we could have larger classes without significantly affecting the progress of those students. But when I say larger classes, we had some at 15, some at 20, but the remainder were still at 10 or fewer students. We offered them day and night, and you know from your work with students how critical it is that a full-service program is offered. We did not want to have a full-service program offered at one site, but not at the other. Our classes met twice a week, and we met for a total of 2.5 hours. And many teachers that I have talked about from around, administrators from around the state of Florida, and this you may be thinking this as well, what happens to the required contact hours? Well, we did this in what's called a blended delivery format so that we could vary the contact hours. And we offered them in 8-week 1 sessions, and we offered them in 8-week 2 sessions with an option for early exit. And a number of our students did exit early and go on. In some cases, they exited in 4 weeks and went into what we call an express, a 12-week Composition 1 class. Now, I probably should stop and say here that reading is a prerequisite or a co-requisite for us for Composition 1. That made the entry into Composition 1 in the same semester much smoother, as you can imagine. We thought when we first started that we would have a number of students who placed into both English and reading. Well, we found that many of the students who placed in English did not place into developmental reading, and many who placed in developmental reading for some reason did not place into developmental English. So we did not have many students who were enrolled in both. We had a few. We offered these as 2-credit courses because, remember, our goal is to reduce costs for students and for the institution as well, but for students. And so we felt that we were going to offer an 8-week course. If a 16-week course was 4 credits, then we would offer it for 2. We used my reading lab and my writing lab for diagnostic testing because they were tailored for the specific competencies that were on what was then required for our state exit exams. We no longer have state exit exams in the state of Florida. We don't have mandated exit exams. We have assessment of competencies based on the Common Core standards in Florida. We are a Common Core standard state, specifically on the post-secondary readiness competencies. And my writing lab and my reading lab were very responsive and very quickly adapted to those new competencies. And the diagnostic testing reflects those competencies. We also felt it was important for students to have faculty lectures that were supported through our learning management system that they could go home and listen to, and we're still working on those. We're going to use some grant money this summer to write courses of record, what we call courses of record. Some of you may refer to them as master courses. They're designed to be flexible, but we do want to load content so that our adjunct instructors coming in will have the content available to them and then can use that content and make the changes that they need. Because we were, at that point, under exit exams, we were giving practice exit exams whenever the faculty determined with the student that the student was ready. Eventually, what we want to do is go to, well, we already have been using the mastery testing that's available through my reading lab and my writing lab, which we set at 80%. But eventually, what we ended up with at St. Petersburg College is that the students who exit now our developmental, highest level of developmental, we have 2 levels in the state of Florida, our upper level developmental, exit, at least at our college, each college is making individual decisions in that matter, on an argumentation essay. And that has, as you can imagine, been a very challenge to teach in 8 weeks and have students successfully exit that requirement. We also have a midterm that's given at the 4-week point over grammar. And I can answer more specific questions about those assessments if you're interested when we finish when I finish my discussion, my presentation, I should say. We have the support of our president, which is a wonderful thing, in that he basically told us that he is firmly committed to developmental education and to these types of innovations in developmental education. And if we had any problem with technology, he did not want that to be an issue. If we had problems with cost or budgeting, he did not want that to be an issue. And so we have a massive college-wide look at how our outside instructional support is related to the student success. So we have close ties to the Learning Support Commons, our writing and reading labs on the various sites, and we offer the courses in those labs whenever we can. If that's not possible, we make sure that they're offered in computer labs, and we're very fortunate to have those computer labs available. I wanted to give you a little bit of background without overwhelming you this morning, I guess this afternoon now, about our target population. For those of you who are familiar with Accuplacer, we looked at the sentence skills subtest of Accuplacer, and we targeted students who made between 75 and 82 on what we call the CPT, the computerized placement test. Those are the students we targeted. They either had a 75 to 82 in sentence skills, or they had a 75 to 82 on the reading portion. But we've quickly found ourselves moving to Plan B. For one thing, we had repeaters who had been recommended by faculty. We felt that those repeaters had shown a work ethic during the course and felt that they could benefit from a quick-paced program because they came close to testing out in the first semester. We also went into classes and simply recruited during the first week. Teachers were giving diagnostic testing in the classes to support student success, and so we went to the teachers and said, send us your top students who performed well on your diagnostic test, and so many of them did. We worked with enrollment management and testing to identify students who had placed within the target population within the last year but had never attended. That turned out to be a wonderful recruiting tool. We got an Excel spreadsheet from testing with the names of all those students, and we simply did a mail merge and sent out letters of invitation to those students. We're still trying to figure out how many of those students actually came into the program. Our campus academic chairs work with advisement to answer questions and visited the campus testing centers. Our faculty met with students, again, who had demonstrated a work ethic and advised them to enroll in the course. And again, the referral by faculty for students who scored well on an in-class diagnostic testing. I like to tell a story about what happened when I knew that this program might actually take off. One day I was called to a meeting that was put together by a friend of mine who worked in curriculum and had been at the college for eons. She just knew everybody. And so I went into this room, and there were people there that I recognized right away. You know, the head of financial aid and the head of enrollment management and the head of the associate vice VP for student success and a number of other people around the table, the deans and folks like that. And also some people that I had not seen before. And it turned out, and I've been with the college 25 years, these folks were programmers. And they kind of came out to the central location and we met, and then they sort of went back into their offices. And I have not seen them since. But they were enormously supportive. You know, they basically told us, we will make this work. What they were most concerned about was that the grade capture, because we have an 8-week grade capture in PeopleSoft, which is our management system, student management system, and a 16-week grade capture. We did not have a 4-week grade capture. And for students who were exiting early, we had no way to, we could enter their grade into the system, but it would not stick, in quotes, until the 8th week. So all of that sort of had to be worked out. We really wanted to do open entry, but that has not worked out. We do not have that rolling open entry that other colleges have done well with. So we're still working on that part of it. Well, what have we learned? We've learned so much. We know that open enrollment for all students testing into upper level of developmental reading and writing, we felt that we should just open that up. And the pilot was this spring, but I'm hearing from faculty who are saying these are not the same bridge classes, which is what they call them, as we have had in the past. So I don't know that we will keep allowing students to self-enroll rather than going through a selective process. We're still thinking about that, but the faculty would sure like to go back to a more selective enrollment. We created 8-week 2 ENC 1101 sections, and then for math, some MAT 1033, which is our intermediate algebra sections of various lengths, with the same faculty if possible. So students could attempt to try to complete ENC 1101 in the same semester. And I do have persistence data to share with you. The idea then would be that students would take ENC 0990 in the first 8 weeks, and then would move into ENC 1101. And if they needed to take reading and had not completed it, they could take the reading or 0990 at the same time as they took Composition 1. The idea was also to make sure that those students took those courses with the same faculty. So we do not have a separate developmental education department. So many of our faculty who teach Dev Ed, writing and reading, also teach Composition 1. So that allowed for some flexibility. But what really made the difference, and this won't be any surprise to you, is that we chose our faculty very carefully. You know, many of them volunteered because they were excited about the program. We took the faculty who were the best coaches and motivators in the class. It turns out that all the faculty have stayed on, except for one who really felt that this was not her cup of tea, you know, just felt that she would be better used in other places. But the majority of the faculty have been very supportive of this program and very excited about its possibilities. I'm going to slow down just a minute because I'm going into the success rates, and I wanted to make sure that I showed those to you. We knew in the spring of 2011 that when we looked at that data, we saw that the students who took our regular basic writing upper level course, which in Florida was called ENC0020, it's now changed its number, that the pass rate was 53.4% in the spring of 2011 for 774 students. Our bridge pass rate, that was over a 16-week course. But our bridge classes that were 8-week 1 and then again 8-week 2, so that students who did not pass in 8-week 1 could repeat, 69% of those passed with a C or better. And that was based on an N of 100 for the students that we looked at when we looked at this particular cohort. The reading students passed with a C or better at 73%. That was 89 students, compared to a 57.4% pass rate for our upper level reading class, and there were 744 students enrolled. We showed these to our president, our senior vice president, who were obviously very excited because, and so the math dean and I have just been thrilled with these results because we knew we needed to move toward greater student success in developmental courses. That's what we all want. And while I'm fully cognizant that no one strategy is the way to do that, obviously here we were having some results. In the fall, you see that the passing rate, very similar, 68%, but this time with 172 students compared to 57%, and this is our new number in Florida for ENC0025 with an enrollment of 893 students. Obviously, we're going to have more students in the fall than in the spring. The real surprise was the reading pass rate, which went to 86%, passing with a C or better with 152 students. Although my reading faculty this semester assure me that I probably will not have the same results the same semester this semester because we did not use that selective admissions into the class. But that's compared to 68% for our highest level course. But it's kind of interesting as you see not only did the rates go up for our 8-week classes, but also for our 16-week classes. But the real surprise was the very low withdrawal rate, which I do not have on this slide, but the withdrawal rate was very small. And I think it's because it's an 8-week class. You know, they do not make it to Thanksgiving and then not coming back. And in the spring, we're on spring break this week. Students finish what they're doing. Spring break hits. They're done. We don't have to worry about that loss of motivation, which as you and I have seen as basic writing teachers when they come back from spring break, come back from Thanksgiving, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to keep that level of motivation going for those students. I also looked at persistence data. So I took, again, the N being 100. We looked at the students who passed on the first attempt. I just shared that data with you. We looked at those who repeated. Then we looked at those who finished ENC 1101 with a D or better, and it was 53%. We have 8 more of those 69 currently enrolled this semester, a year later, in Composition 1101. We know that 10 of those students have finished Composition 1102, and we do have a number of students in AS programs. I'm sure you do too. Most of them going into nursing, and we do not require Composition 2 for that program. So not all of our students would need to take Comp 2. We're proud that 8 of them are still enrolled in Comp 2 this semester, and that 54% of them are still enrolled 1 year later. Now, do I wish that number were higher? Absolutely. But when I looked at this, and as you see this, look at the relationship between the number of students who finished ENC 1101 with a D or better and those still enrolled 1 year later. It's that access to that Comp 1, that transfer level course, and the success in that course that makes the difference. Here's the persistence data for reading. This was in a smaller N, 72. And you see that then, again, how many passed on the first attempt, how many passed on the second attempt, the number who finished 1101 with a C or better, those are currently enrolled, those who passed 1102 with a C or better. Remember, for the most part, these students are not the ones who came through the ENC 0990. These are my bridge reading students, and most of them were not in ENC at 0990 at the same time. Currently enrolled, we have 11%, and still enrolled 1 year later. We have 57% of those students still enrolled. Again, is that the ideal? Absolutely not. Is it an improvement over what we've seen in the past? We believe that it is, although that data has been tough to get for the general population at the college. I want to wrap up just by talking about some of our concerns and struggles that I think most any group working to do course redesign will experience. And then I know you have questions. I sure hope you have questions, and we can talk a little bit further as your questions come in. Here's the first concern. What do you do when students simply don't complete within the session? Well, we believe it's important to give those students an 8-week 2 opportunity. Those are a little bit of gamble, of course, to schedule. So we have tried to take our most popular 8-week 1 time and put the course in the same time in the 8-week 2 for students who do not complete within the session. But what we hope to do in the long run is work out contracts with those students and have them work through the instructional assistants in our reading and writing labs, our learning support commons, and have the students work that way. And then when maybe assign those students an incomplete, and then when the student completes the program, assign the credits. We're still working to improve registration and advisement. And again, I think we have a new placement test in the state of Florida. Some of you may know that. We don't know what an upper level placement is. You know, we're going to have to do some guessing as to what is the upper level of our what's called PERT, our post-secondary education readiness test. We've got to figure that out. I've been working very closely with the language arts supervisor for the Pinellas County Schools, working with her to figure out how we can share working together on post-secondary readiness. There is a new English course in the senior year of high school for select high schools, although it's supposed to be rolled out countywide next year, called English for College Prep. It is an integrated reading and writing class. So what we're working on is how can we work with those seniors in high school when they graduate, but those who still may have a few competencies to remediate. Can we get them in the summer, get those competencies remediated, and move them on into college-level coursework in the fall? We have been working with we have a very capable testing coordinator who just took another job at college. I'll miss talking with her. Fortunately, it's a related job. She has been very helpful in trying to figure out the testing processes. What happens is when a student takes the placement test and scores within the specific range, this is what did happen and what we're probably going back to for fall, the student receives a card, very brightly colored card that says, "Congratulations, you qualify for the My Bridge to Success program." And we give them a survey they can go that will refer them to a website and then an email for more information. We'll probably go back to that system for the fall. We've been struggling a little bit about how to design a statistical model that will really tell our story. what you saw today was the quantitative methodology, but of course there's much qualitative methodology involved too. And we're thinking about focus groups. We probably will bring those students in and conduct some focus groups. It would be a great subject, by the way, of course, for a dissertation. And then we're working to figure out how we can support professional development of faculty through events such as the one today, so they can communicate with other course redesign faculty statewide and nationally. Pearson has been very helpful in getting these kinds of conversations going. They have really been ahead of the curve on course redesign, particularly in reading and writing. Now, there's a lot in math, but there's just not much for developmental in reading and writing. If you want to read some background on Florida and what we're doing, there's a Jobs for the Future website. I don't know if you know that organization. I believe they're associated with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're out of Boston. There's an article on their website. If you click on reports, it's called Testing Ground, How Florida Schools and Colleges Are Using a New Assessment to Increase College Readiness. But there's also a good bit of information about our program at the college. Thank you for your patience as I went through the PowerPoint. I hope I didn't leave anybody sleeping on the desk or running for cover. I want to repeat, there is no one strategy. You know, we have a tendency in education, as you know, to make it sound like the latest strategy is the latest and greatest. But what we're all about is student success. So I think we need a combination of strategies, a combination of methodologies. No methodology is going to work for every student, but we do know that there are students in developmental education classes who just barely miss the cutoff. And what a great chance to redesign these courses on your campuses so that students who came so close to the cutoff can find success more quickly in the academic situation than they might have had they had to go through several semesters before completing that first transfer level course. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Campbell. We do have some questions for you. Here's one from Ernie Branson at Edison State College in Fort Myers, Florida. He asks, do you envision your program as eventually going to a full open entry / open exit model? If the laws in Florida change, do you see any advantage to the open entry, open exit model over the 8-week 2 model?
I do see advantages. And as I mentioned before, and good to hear from a fellow Floridian, and you know what we're working on, we have not always had that flexibility regarding open entry. I am in conversations with our president, and that has been helpful because, probably like your president, been at the legislature trying to influence and participate in discussions with legislators regarding the funding of developmental in the state of Florida. I think that there is a possibility, although it may not be in my professional lifetime, that we will move in the state of Florida to a true competency-based assessment before enrolling in these courses. And that we will have an opportunity. That certainly makes the open exit much more possible. The open entry is the hardest thing because I don't know about Edison what program you use, but we have not received a lot of excitement from our PeopleSoft management folk about the possibility of open entry. Is it ideal? I think it is. You know, we have, particularly as we try to capture students all the way through the semester who may come in late. We have thought about running these classes. That's one reason we're doing the 8-week 2 class. They can come in and for the first time in the 8-week 2. Now, that's not truly open entry, but it does give them a chance to come in later in the semester. What are your feelings about that?
Unfortunately, Dr. Campbell, none of our attendees will actually be able to speak on this call. So maybe I can connect you to Ernie.
Okay.
I can try to connect you to Ernie offline. He did have another question he submitted. He asks, do you make use of instructional assistants or graduate students in your program to make it more cost effective as well as give more individual help?
Yes, we have had instructional assistants through our Learning Support Commons, some of whom have taught these classes, but we're not, they're teaching them outside of their load in the Learning Support Commons. In the past, that was not the case, but there is a strong move at our college to have our instructional assistants as much as possible during their contracted hours work in the Learning Support Commons rather than teaching classes during that time. So we have not used graduate assistants.
Okay. Here's a question from Judy Braun. What percentage of your students are considered ESL?
Our ESL students are in a, I don't know what the exact percentage, but they do not come into the Bridge program. We have a very, we have an English for Academic Purposes program that starts at the most basic level of ESL, and we have a non-credit International Language Institute for students who are not even at that level yet, and it goes all the way through, of course, directly before Composition 1. So we do not have, the only time we have had some ESL students in these courses is when we had the exit exam in Florida, and they may have passed the reading portion but not the English, or vice versa. But there are very few ESL students in these. We have not tried to fast track the EAP program.
Okay. Thanks. Here's a question from Susan Grover at Brigham Young University in Idaho. She asks, as you mentioned at the beginning, I would like more information about what assessment placement tests you use and why.
Well, and there's a long answer to that, but I'm going to try to give you the shorter answer. McCann & Associates, who was hired to produce the new placement test for Florida, also produced a diagnostic assessment for the lower level of reading and writing and the upper level of reading and writing. Obviously, the state of Florida would like for us to move in the direction of using those assessments. However, and although this is not politically correct for me to say this, faculty do not yet have the level of confidence in those assessment tests. Now, it could be that we use those assessment tests to test at the end of the senior year in high school to see where those students might be as they exit that program. So we are relying on the assessment that is diagnostic assessments that are part of the software program, specifically my writing lab and my reading lab. Curiously, I just had a lengthy interview with Matt Rosen, R-O-S-I-N, who is with EdSource, writing an article for EdSource on this problem nationwide. It's actually, he's specifically looking at California's attempt to come up and to deal with in-course and out-of-course assessment. So I don't know when that article is being published. I hope it's soon, because many states are, as they look at the common, particularly the Common Core Standards states, are facing the same problem. And if we do use an assessment that is outside of the software, then how do we use it? I think we'd still be supplementing that assessment information or doing a secondary assessment with the diagnostic assessment that is part of the software program.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Gilbert Sanchez at Kingston University in Los Angeles, and he asks, can you mention how you use the grants and where you found them? And sort of dovetailing on that, you know, is your grant still going on, and what are you required to submit for that grant? So yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the grant?
Sure. As much as I know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave a grant to several states. Florida called it the Florida Developmental Initiative Grant. I don't know whether the state of California received a grant or will be receiving a grant. our grant officially ends in the summer of 2000, this summer, 2012. Although I believe, and we have the support from the president, from our president, to continue the program despite the fact that the grant will be ending. So we received an RFP from the state of Florida, from our Chancellor for Academic Affairs office, asking us to submit. And we had 10 days to submit, and 2 weeks later we had the grant, and we're stunned because we were trying to, first of all, we didn't think we'd get the grant. And second of all, we surely didn't think we'd find out so soon and would have to move forward so soon. I would talk to your grants officer. I would also talk to the National Center for Academic Transformation, who may know about some grants for course redesign. And I would talk to Jobs for the Future, I know that the Jobs for the Future leadership is working with the states of Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida on this issue, and maybe working with other states like California as well. Obviously, there's some interest because the Matt Rosen, who's with EdSource, was specifically writing about the issues in California.
Mm-hmm. We got a comment from Ernest Branson who says, NCAT also has grants available for course redesign, including in the developmental areas. We were able to use one of these grants to start our pilot of an emporium model with reading and writing developmental classes. So thank you, Ernest, for that comment.
And I'll have to contact Ernie because my grandchildren are near Edison State, and it's not hard for me to have any excuse to go down there. And what a great, and that's not really an excuse, what a great professional opportunity. I'll have to find Ernie and find out what you're doing in reading and writing.
And that's what's so great about these webinars, is sort of connecting people.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick question from Sandy Clifton. You may have mentioned this, but did your diagnostic include a written essay portion?
It did not.
Okay. And let's see, we have a comment from Susan Grover. There is a movement in our school to prepare our own online developmental material instead of using publisher-produced material like My Reading Lab or My Writing Lab. Why did you choose to use My Reading Lab and My Writing Lab instead of create your own material?
Well, I'm thinking that the best opportunity is a combination of software programs currently in existence while also creating our own. Part of it was that we decided to ask the teachers to work on the supplemental lectures and websites and other kinds of things to supplement My Reading Lab and My Writing Lab. Part of it is the time sensitivity. We had to move fast to get these courses in. Mm-hmm. Our teachers already, our faculty already had a confidence level because they had been using My Writing Lab and My Reading Lab. So many of the faculty who came forward to volunteer already had been using those products. I have written and been involved with the development of courses of record for Composition 1 and Composition 2. We chose at our college to do that without reference to a textbook, but we found that in the long run, faculty wanted those courses of record tied to a textbook. So we ended up with a common handbook for those courses.
And do you know what percentage My Reading Lab and My Writing Lab count for in the courses?
What we've done is they have to complete all of the competencies that are indicated through the diagnostic test. They have to complete those at 80%. Mm-hmm. They have to complete a midterm diagnostic assessment that is worth 15% of the course value. They have to, course grade, they have to write a final essay that is worth 25% of the course value. And then they have to write, so that's 40%. And then about another 40% is generally essays that they write during that time period. So I would think for most faculty, we have not tried to standardize that, but I think for most faculty somewhere between 20% and 30%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Campbell. This has been really informative. And as I said before, we'll be sending you a link to a recording of this PowerPoint, and we'll be happy to provide Dr. Campbell's contact info if you have any questions. And our next session will be in 15 minutes at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you so much, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.